This is IBN, the Islamic Broadcasting Network. The following program is sponsored by the Islamic Media Foundation, sharing the guidance of Allah through the broadcast media and the Internet.
Welcome to Family Matters with your host, Mollie Shamma. Because each family matters.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Family Matters. This is Mollie Shamma. Today I have Elizabeth Berger with me. Elizabeth is a child psychiatrist, and she has a great book out there called Raising Children with Character. And I want to welcome her back to the show again. Hi, Liz. You still there?
I am.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
It's good to have you again. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're here again. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about putting pressure on kids to make the grade. I know that we've hit the middle of the school year, and probably by now parents have a pretty good indication of where their kids are academically and socially. And I wanted to ask you a few questions, if I could, about, how much pressure is too much, and if my kid's not succeeding, how can I help them without stressing them out and making their life miserable? And, I know a lot of parents, especially Muslim parents, tend to expect a lot out of their kids. They want them to go ahead and they expect them to be college graduates. They expect them to go on to medical school or engineering or some really tough mathematic fields. And I see this a lot in the community where I am. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about, how much pressure is healthy and how much pressure could be harmful, perhaps. So where shall we start?
Well, let me say that I'm not sure that this is actually a faucet issue. That is to say, do you want to turn it a little or a lot? Where the right answer is, you want a middle amount.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me talk more about where the parent stands in terms of the child's overall development.
Okay.
Developing a child's potential.
Sure.
Because I think parents often sort of look narrowly at, should I force my child to get an A instead of a B? Or, why isn't he doing his homework at 4 in the afternoon instead of 7 in the evening?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a wider perspective sometimes helps parents to see where their own answers are. I encourage parents to look at the child's job of fulfilling his potential in life as something that the parent, like a gardener, nurtures like you would a little tomato plant by providing it with all the things that it needs, making sure that something dangerous like a bird or an animal that might eat the plant doesn't happen, and providing the water, the sunshine, the soil, but recognizing that you don't grow tomato plants by pulling on them. And the same thing is true with the kind of character qualities like being a hardworking person, being a trustworthy person, being a compassionate person, that parents would also love to see their children develop.
Sure.
But these are really not behaviors. These are things that happen from the inside in children. So that the history behind a child's schoolwork is really the role of effort and of mastering the world in the child's life. And, if children go to the first grade when they're 6 or so, this is a youngster who's had half a dozen years of living before the first day of school.
Right.
And thousands of lessons about, am I a person who can master the world, or am I some weak little thing under the thumb of the world?
Mhm.
Now, naturally, fast trucks are in the street, and so parents have to see to it that the child's not run over by the trucks, so that there are lots of situations in which the parent can't negotiate. The parent just has to make sure that the child is safe. And this is kind of an impingement on the child's motion and curiosity.
Mhm.
But there are many other moments during the day when a youngster needs to explore things, to be curious, to ask questions, and a parent helps the youngster be a joyful learner by participating joyfully in the child's learning, even if it's asking, these, why is the sky blue? Why does a bird fly? I mean, these kind of endless little questions of small children. I think you can see, as a digression, how situations where the parents live in hardship are hard on children and don't prepare children well for school. If the parents, let's say, are in a dangerous situation, in war or in poverty situation, the parent has to be saying, don't touch, don't do that, don't make noise, all day long.
Right.
And so the child experiences the environment as some kind of scary, mysterious thing. He sort of withdraws into his own little head because the child doesn't feel that the environment is, the world is his oyster.
Sure.
The environment is something that persecutes him. So you can see why situations of this kind and much of the world, unfortunately, has experiences like this, does not help children get a head start to be intellectually vigorous.
Right.
I think the key point I'd make is that a child gradually takes ownership in his own work, regardless of what the work is. He takes pride in it. And that the best way for parents to make that grow is for the child to watch the parent take pride in whatever it is the parent takes pride in. Then the little one has a Me Too thing. They want to copy what the parent is doing in a miniature way. So that the parent gets a sense of satisfaction and effort, and then children say, hey, that's what it's all about, and then the child tries, and the parent says, yes, that's great. It may be not on a professional level yet, but it's great for a little squirt like you.
And I think it's very important for children to have a lot of positive feedback from parents, even if their efforts aren't necessarily, even 100%. But if they're actually giving an effort, the parent needs to be conscious of that, aware of that, be able to reward them for the effort they are making so that they will continue to make effort.
Absolutely. And I think parents sometimes get mixed up. Oftentimes modern parents say, well, this kid did a fairly average job or mediocre job. Why should I tell him that this is the greatest drawing of a butterfly ever made when it isn't a very good drawing of a butterfly? My answer to that would be, what the parent is communicating is not that it is the best drawing of a butterfly, but that this little child is the apple of your eye, so that the joy that you take when this particular child draws a butterfly can't compare with all those other kids around the world.
True.
Because he's your child, so that the joy that the parent who loves the child brings to it is not ever the same as with the teacher who judges more impersonally, makes comparisons. A child needs to pick up from the parent that sense of joy. I'm the best little kid in the world. What parent doesn't say that?
Sure, absolutely.
So that is really what gives the child the enthusiasm about himself that allows him to have the courage to face the failures that are inevitable.
Well, and these are the building blocks of self-esteem, I think.
Exactly.
And if you spend your first 5 or 6 years, having everybody tell you you're the best, you're the greatest, you're the, whatever, then you have some oomph. I mean, it's a little bit of a comeuppance sometimes when the first time someone tells you, hey, so-and-so was better, but you deal with that better because you already have that in yourself.
Exactly. And this child's sense of joy in his own doing is very, very, very tightly connected to energy and enthusiasm about accomplishment on a latency age, school age level, as we would say, or an adolescent level, or a young adult level. And many of the kids who seem to fall apart at a later stage are really reflecting ways that they were cheated much earlier in life, that they need to draw on something inside and they don't have it inside in terms of memory of encouragement when they were little.
Right. Well, I think, I don't know, maybe some parents are too quick to condemn and not quick enough to come back with encouraging, rewarding words later. And I think I can't emphasize that enough, because I know just in my own experience teaching elementary school, what I see is I can tell the kids who are encouraged at home, and I can tell the kids who are kind of put down at home just by the way that they act in school. Because they're the kids who are either encouraging or putting down other kids, and they're also the kids that, have the esteem issues.
Exactly. And also, I might say that many parents, if you ask them, don't you want to praise your child and make him feel good? Of course, that's what the parent wants, but the realities that the parent is up against in terms of the parent being fatigued and burnt out and, works hard all day and comes home, hanging by that last neuron.
No doubt.
So that parents are oftentimes sort of short with their kids, not because they're terrible people, but because they just are, they need some fuel themselves.
Yeah. And nobody comes around and tells the parents, hey, you're doing a great job, very often.
Absolutely.
The older that we get, the less kind of reinforcement for what we're doing, unless you have a close girlfriend or a close guy friend, who's going to say, hey, I saw you with your kids the other day. You were really terrific when such and such happened. You don't get that kind of feedback very often.
That's a very important point, and I think that's one of the ways that modern life is so screwy, that particularly mothers are so isolated. They're isolated from each other. They're isolated from any sense of the generations.
Because we all live disjointed families and all over the countryside, and we don't have the extended families anymore where we would see that sort of thing.
Right, so that people, although they may be very capable in a certain skill set, they're great as a computer programmer, they'll tell you right off the bat that they crave a tremendous amount of validation for, why am I on this planet? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes that sense of insecurity is communicated in the relationship with their kids.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a large problem.
I think it's a huge problem, and I think that we have to really be careful about. Well, and I think it also comes back to you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. And I don't know how many people I could point to and say, here's somebody who really needs to learn how to love themselves and appreciate who they are for what they are. I mean, I know a lot of adults that have esteem problems. And then they pass that right on to their kids because they feel bad, so then they yell at their kids, and then their kids feel bad, and here we go with the circle again.
Yes, and the relationship between love in early childhood and learning in later childhood is one that I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
Now, let's address some parent who's listening to all this and saying, well, fine, I love my child, and I'm still all worried about what's going on in, the 4th grade or the 11th grade.
I love them a lot, and they're still doing bad, so what am I going to do?
Exactly. I think that the first thing that I would do if the parent feels that there's a problem, is to approach the youngster and say, I'm a little concerned that there's a problem. Let's speak of this issue. What do you think there's a problem? And the parent who respectfully approaches his youngster in this tone may be in for a surprise. That the child might say, yes, I feel terrible about this math class. I just don't get it. I don't know what I'm doing, and then you have a team. You have the parent and the child then trying to work together to solve something. But many times a youngster won't come forth to the parent first. It's got to be the grown-up that identifies that there may be trouble somewhere. And it's hard for parents, because they're so anxious that their kids do well, to make it not seem like a criticism. So that's the first thing I'd say, is approach the child in a not critical way. The next thing often is for parents to ask teachers, and there too, teachers oftentimes feel like parents sort of come at them in a demanding and attacking way.
Yeah.
And
I'm a teacher. I know this.
Okay. And getting to the facts sometimes has surprises in it.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice to parents would be, don't walk in, trying to club the teacher. First say, I know you work hard with these kids. Share with me your wisdom and years of observation of 50 billion fifth graders. What is your sense of what's going on with my child?
Mm-hmm.
And so that hopefully you get all three people on the team, the
Right.
parent, the youngster, and the teacher.
Right.
Then the nature of the problem then may differ. A lot of the time, the parent can do a big service to a child by actually sitting down with the material that the kid's struggling with, and for the two of them to try to understand it together.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that the parent has to be a professional tutor.
Right. But I can tell you that definitely is a big one, is having the parent, even if the parent isn't necessarily studying with the child, knowing that the parent at home is reinforcing the importance of the lessons, and knowing that the kid is getting from his parents at home a reinforcement of, hey, this is important, and let's pay attention to it, and you know what, if I can go to mom and dad for help, and they take me seriously, and they take time for me at that point, well, this becomes a family time, this becomes a learning experience for everybody, and it's an invaluable experience. I don't know what I would say to a parent who just merely says, go do your homework, and takes no interest in it and sees no value in it. I mean, this is something that I can't stress enough, just having come from, I just walked out of elementary school 2 hours ago. So I know that when I send stuff home, I would hope that the parents would at least take a look at it, see what the kids are working on. But, again, everybody has a busy lifestyle. Most of these parents got home at 6 o'clock and didn't have time to get dinner on the table, and then the kids have to go to bed. So, in this busy world, in this busy lifestyle, making time for your kids is sometimes difficult, but invaluable.
Yes. And the other thing is, I think that it takes a lot of courage for a kid who's not a great student to sit there staring at a homework problem that he can't solve.
Yeah.
Because every minute that he can't solve it, the problem sits there on the page saying, you're an idiot because you can't figure this out.
Mm.
So that having a friend there holding his hand, even if it's just the parent reading a magazine, but sitting at the same table
Mm-hmm.
as moral support.
Right.
Now, this is not the same thing as a jail keeper who's making sure that the kid doesn't play hooky.
You're going to sit here until you do this.
No, not at all. It's I'm going to sit here. We're going to be friendly. You're going to be doing your work. I'm going to be doing my work.
Right.
If the child feels that the rest of the family is off laughing in the TV room together, and he's, banished in prison doing his homework,
Yeah.
that may not set the stage for his optimizing his motivation
Absolutely.
for really mastering the material. But if it's obvious that the parent is sitting there puzzling over something, then this gets to be kind of what life is about.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so.
So working on the problems that the kid just can't figure out at all, that's something parents can do in a friendly way. Or doing your own work in the room with the kid.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Especially if the parent likes to read or work the crossword puzzle or whatever it is. Find that quiet, busy time, Instead of reading before you go to bed, pick up your book and read it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when your kid's working on their homework and sit there with them. That's a great idea. And then you're there to answer questions or spell something or correct punctuation if necessary, So that's a great idea.
Good.
We are just about out of time, but I so much appreciate you joining us today. I want to talk a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the book. We haven't talked about it in a while. Raising Children with Character.
Yes. Well, it came out in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about school at great length, both what teachers offer to character development and what early childhood has to do with success in school. But it also talks about gender, sexuality, money, toilet training, the terrible twos, all of the issues in chronological order, from the perspective of the psychological bond between parents and children, the communication, the intimacy, what's said, what's not said, and tells a story of child development from the point of view of the relationship.
So today's topic was right up your alley. Right out of the book, as it were.
A classic one, yes.
A classic one. Well, that's fantastic. And then there's also a website if people would like to know more about Elizabeth Berger and what's going on.
Yes, it's www.parentingbyheart, all one word, parentingbyheart.com.
And so people can go there and find out a little bit about you and a little bit about the book. And what else do you have up there these days? I haven't been to the site in a while.
It mostly features the book. It has some reviews, has a little excerpt.
And the reviews are great, and the excerpt was great.
Well, thank you.
Yep. Many kudos and lots of clapping hands going on over here.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Liz. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, and we love to have your insight. I know that we've had some really good feedback about some of the sessions we've had, so inshallah we'll be getting back together again very soon.
Well, great. Thank you.
Okay, jazakallah khair. And inshallah, this is Mollie Shamma signing off for Family Matters. We'll be back with you again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This program has been sponsored by the Islamic Media Foundation, sharing the guidance of Allah through the broadcast media and the Internet.